Hey guys, short here with the video on the viability of soloing early dragons as a jungler. Before I get into this video, I want to say that you, Mr. or Miss Viewer, are awesome, and I hope you're having a great day, and I hope that tomorrow is even better. But now let's talk a little bit about these early dragons. Now I've been seeing a lot of talks about them, people saying that it's overpowered, and how that a champion's worth scales with their ability to solo dragons at these low levels. But is it really that good? First and foremost, it is pretty bloody risky to be taking these early dragons. If you get seen or spotted for whatever reason, you're going to be more screwed than a poly drive. In addition to this, in order to even be able to solo dragon early, most champions will need to take a suboptimal rune page. Take the example CivHD made a video about a while back with Pantheon's soloing dragon at level 1. Back then, Pantheon's passive would block dragon's auto attacks, meaning as long as his passive was up, he wouldn't take any damage. Pantheon's passive refreshes after a certain amount of auto attacks, so essentially the more autos you do, the more passive you get, and the less damage you take. This was only possible, however, if you took a full attack speed rune page. And by full attack speed, I mean full attack speed. Red, yellows, blues, and quints. Whereas this page enabled Pantheon to solo dragon at level 1, it would also work against you for the entire rest of the game, as you'd have no defensive stats and would be neglecting Pantheon's great AD scalings. Now, I'm not suggesting Civ recommended this as a legitimate viable strategy, although if anyone's crazy enough to do it, it definitely would be Civ. But seeing the comments of the video and the comments that were made to me thereafter, people definitely seemed to think so. In my eyes, gimping yourself for the rest of the game with a bad mastery or rune page just to be taking away dragon early is not worth it. Soloing dragons early isn't about you killing dragon before he can kill you. It's impossible to race him in terms of damage because the dragon will eat you up every single time. Taking dragons early is a marathon, not a sprint, and as such it will take a significant amount of your time. Time that would otherwise be spent killing jungle camps and pressuring lanes. So the real question is the reward for killing Dragon Camp worth the significant time investment? The answer is, quite frankly, as I'm concerned, no. As far as experience goes, Dragon gives you less than Raptors. And when I say Raptors, I'm not even talking about the big one. Killing the mini Raptors gives you more experience than killing Dragon. So what about gold? The mini Raptors couldn't possibly give you more Wonga as well. Well, sad to say that yes, the mini raptors give you more gold than the dragon does. Even killing a ward gives you more gold. So fact is, by doing dragon you spend a lot of time for no gold or experience, which means you're going to have to dedicate time in future to catch up, giving your team zero jungle pressure, allowing the enemy jungle to pull ahead and to freely pressure your team. Guess what lanes will be losing if one team has an active jungler and the other team doesn't? So if we've established that dragon sets you pretty behind as far as gold and experience goes, this means the dragon buff itself has to be worth it. Is it? The first dragon buff itself grants 6% AD and AP. As a percentage, it's felt more in the late game than in early game. It's safe to say this buff will have little to no effect on the lane phase, as you would need 170 AD just to get a longsword worth of AD from the dragon buff. Just as a bit of perspective, this is around the amount of AD people have when they get their Infinity Edge, which is pretty bloody expensive. As for magic damage, for a champion to get an amped home's worth of AP from dragon buff, they would need to already have over 7,000 gold worth of AP. And most mages wouldn't even be stacking AP either. A lot of mid laners would invest gold into utility stats such as those on Dawn's Ring, Morello's and Zhonya's, meaning they'd have to be spending even more gold just to get an amped home's worth of ability power. I think it's fairly safe to say that when you have to spend that much gold just to get a sliver of a bonus, then the early game dragon buff isn't really going to give you that much. Definitely not worth putting yourself behind for. However, there are some other sneaky benefits worth considering. First of all, you can deny the enemy team the kill timer so they can never know when it respawns, meaning you can set up and take future dragons without the enemy team even knowing. Now that's all well and good in theory, but in practice there are two counter arguments for this. Firstly, you can see the animation on laners when dragon has been taken, meaning it is entirely possible with good awareness to actually time that dragon accurately. Secondly, your team may not be in the position to take advantage of that knowledge of the dragon's timer to sneak it away, especially if they're behind, which is a good possibility if you as a jungler were absent in the early game taking that dragon. Just knowing the timer is not enough to secure a dragon. Another sneaky benefit is the ability to set up future dragons, specifically that 5th one, earlier. Essentially, by taking a dragon earlier, you increase your chances of getting that 5th dragon earlier too. Now, I don't personally like this strat for solo queue. You're basically trading off some of your early game for the late game. In solo queue, more often than not, provided you don't throw, a 1 lane will transition into a 1 game. Thus, the early game is very important. It's also worth mentioning that even with this early first dragon, you are not guaranteed the future ones, like I mentioned in my previous point. So with all this considered, do I think soloing early dragons is worth it? In the vast majority of cases, surprise surprise, no, I don't. In fact, I think Steve Carell put it quite elegantly when he said, "No, God, please, no, no!" However, there are actually some champions I would say this is a viable strategy on. Champions who aren't as affected by the negatives that I've mentioned. For example, Master Yi and Warwick. These champions don't need any funky rune or mastery pages. They're solid enough jungle clearers that they can catch up easily, are terrible early game champions so wouldn't be pressuring anyone anyway, and are great late game so would want to play for that long haul. But anyway, I hope this sheds some light on the matter, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, or you can tweet at me at FoxShopLol. You can also find me on Facebook, and you can catch me streaming on Twitch. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.